If you check your blood sugar first thing in the morning and it is higher than when you went to bed, even though you have not eaten anything for 8 hours, your problem is not your diet. Your problem is what your liver is doing while you sleep. Most people assume that blood sugar only rises after you eat. That makes sense. You eat carbohydrates, they break down into glucose, your blood sugar goes up. But here is what almost nobody realizes. Your liver has the ability to manufacture glucose out of thin air and release it into your bloodstream all night long, even when you are not eating a single thing. This process is called hepatic glucose production. In healthy people, it is tightly controlled. In people with insulin resistance, prediabetes or type 2 diabetes, it runs wild. And the result is that you wake up every single morning with elevated blood sugar, elevated insulin, and a metabolism that is primed to store fat instead of burn it. This is not a rare problem. Millions of people experience what doctors call the dawn phenomenon, a sharp rise in blood sugar between 4 a.m. and 8 a.m. caused by hormonal changes that happen while you are unconscious. And because it happens while you sleep, most people have no idea it is even occurring until they get a diagnosis years later. But what if I told you there is a simple drink made from 2 inexpensive ingredients that can measurably reduce how much glucose your liver dumps into your blood overnight? Not a pharmaceutical, not a complicated supplement protocol, just 2 compounds that have been studied in clinical trials and shown to interfere with the exact mechanism that drives nighttime blood sugar spikes. This is not about dieting. This is about understanding what your body does during the 8 hours you are not conscious and giving it what it needs to regulate glucose properly during that window. I am going to show you exactly what the drink is, how it works at a biological level, how to prepare it correctly, and what mistakes will completely cancel its effects. But first, you need to understand why the overnight window matters so much in the first place. Section 2. Why the overnight window matters. Your metabolism does not shut off when you fall asleep. It shifts into a completely different operating mode. And if you do not understand what that mode is doing, you are trying to manage your blood sugar with one hand tied behind your back. When you stop eating for the night, your body enters what is called a fasting state. Your digestive system quiets down. Insulin levels drop, and your body has to figure out how to keep your blood glucose stable for the next 7, 8, maybe 10 hours without any food coming in. To do that, your liver taps into stored glycogen, which is just glucose that has been packed away for later use. It breaks that glycogen down and releases it back into your bloodstream in small, controlled amounts to keep your brain, heart, and cells functioning. In a metabolically healthy person, this works beautifully. Blood sugar stays stable. Insulin stays low. The body quietly burns fat for fuel. You wake up feeling clear-headed, energized, and metabolically balanced. But in someone with insulin resistance, the system breaks down. The liver does not just release a little glucose, it releases too much. And because the cells are resistant to insulin, that glucose has nowhere to go. It just circulates in the blood, driving insulin higher and higher, which then signals the liver to convert the excess glucose into fat and store it, particularly around the abdomen and inside the liver itself. This creates a vicious cycle. High blood sugar leads to high insulin. High insulin leads to more fat storage. More fat storage worsens insulin resistance, and the whole process gets worse every single night. Then, around 3 or 4 in the morning, something else happens. Your body begins to release cortisol. This is not stress cortisol. This is your natural wake-up hormone, part of your circadian rhythm. Cortisol is supposed to gently wake you up and prepare your body for the day ahead. But cortisol also tells your liver to release even more glucose. In a healthy metabolism, a small rise in insulin keeps this in check. In insulin resistance, there is no check. The glucose floods in, your blood sugar spikes. And you wake up with a fasting glucose reading that makes no sense, given that you have not eaten since 7 p.m. the night before. This is the dawn phenomenon, and it is one of the earliest signs of metabolic dysfunction. The dangerous part is that this happens silently. You do not feel it. You do not see it unless you are testing your blood sugar. But over months and years, this nightly glucose dysregulation drives weight gain, brain fog, constant hunger, poor sleep, and eventually full-blown type 2 diabetes. And here is the part that frustrates me. Almost all the mainstream advice about blood sugar focuses on what you eat during the day. Eat more vegetables, cut back on sugar, exercise after meals. All of that is useful, but none of it addresses what is happening in your liver between midnight and sunrise. That is the window we need to target, and that is exactly what this drink does. If you want more health information that focuses on the mechanisms most advice completely ignores, subscribe to Health Unveiled. We go deeper than surface-level tips. We explain how your body actually works so you can make better decisions. Section 3, the biological explanation. Let me explain what is happening inside your liver at night in a way that makes this entire strategy clear. Your liver is not just a detox organ. It is a glucose management center. It stores glucose when you have too much. It releases glucose when you need more. And it converts excess glucose into fat when storage is full. The decision about which of those things happens is controlled primarily by two hormones, insulin and glucagon. When you eat, insulin rises. Insulin tells your liver to stop releasing glucose and start storing it. When you fast, insulin drops and glucagon rises. Glucagon tells your liver to start breaking down glycogen and releasing glucose back into the bloodstream. This is normal. This is how your body is supposed to work. But insulin resistance changes everything. In insulin resistance, your liver becomes less sensitive to insulin's signal. So even when insulin is present, even when it is elevated, the liver does not get the message to stop producing glucose. It just keeps making it and dumping it into your blood. At the same time, your muscle cells, which are supposed to absorb most of the glucose floating around in your bloodstream, also become resistant. They do not take up glucose efficiently, so the glucose just stays in circulation. The result is that your pancreas has to release even more insulin to try to force the glucose into the cells. Insulin levels climb higher, and high insulin does something else that is extremely important. It blocks fat burning. When insulin is elevated, your body cannot access stored fat for energy. It is metabolically locked. You are in storage mode, not burning mode. And this is happening all night long, every night while you sleep. Now here is where it gets worse. Because your liver is insulin resistant, it is also more likely to convert excess glucose into fat through a process called de novo lipogenesis. That is just a fancy term for making new fat from sugar. And that new fat gets stored in two places, around your abdomen as visceral fat, and inside your liver itself as fatty liver. Non-alcoholic fatty liver disease is now one of the most common liver conditions in the world, and it is driven primarily by this exact mechanism. Too much glucose, too much insulin, too much overnight hepatic glucose production that nobody is paying attention to. The liver is supposed to rest and repair at night. It is supposed to shift into a cellular cleanup mode called autophagy, where it breaks down damaged proteins and clears out metabolic waste. But when it is busy processing excess glucose all night, it cannot do that. Repair gets delayed, damage accumulates, and over time this contributes to chronic inflammation, oxidative stress, and accelerated aging. So when we talk about balancing blood sugar overnight, we are not just talking about a number on a glucose meter. We are talking about whether your liver is spending the night storing fat and accumulating damage, or spending the night burning fat and repairing itself. That distinction matters more than almost anything else you do for your metabolic health. Large studies have shown that people with elevated fasting blood sugar, even if it is not high enough to be called diabetic, have significantly higher risks of heart disease, stroke, dementia, and early death. And fasting blood sugar is a direct reflection of what your liver did overnight. This is why targeting the overnight window is so powerful. You are intervening at the source. You are not just managing symptoms during the day, you are addressing the root mechanism that drives the whole problem. And that brings us to the drink. Section 4. The drink reveal and why it works. Here is what the drink is. I'm going to tell you exactly what it contains before I explain the science, because I want you to see how simple this is. 30 to 45 minutes before bed, you drink 8 to 10 ounces of warm water mixed with 1 to 2 tablespoons of raw, unfiltered apple cider vinegar and half a teaspoon of Ceylon cinnamon. That is the entire formula. No proprietary ingredients, no expensive supplements, no subscription boxes. Just 2 things that cost a few dollars and that have been studied in peer-reviewed research for their effects on blood sugar regulation. Now let me show you exactly how each ingredient works and why the combination is more effective than either one alone. The first ingredient is apple cider vinegar, specifically raw, unfiltered apple cider vinegar that still contains what is called the mother, that cloudy sediment at the bottom of the bottle. That cloudiness is not dirt. It is enzymes, probiotics, and organic acids. And the most important acid for blood sugar control is acetic acid. When you consume diluted acetic acid, it gets absorbed quickly from your stomach and small intestine and travels to your liver. Inside your liver cells, acetic acid is converted into a compound called acetyl-CoA, and in the process of doing that, it shifts the energy status inside those cells in a way that activates an enzyme called AMP-activated protein kinase, or AMPK. AMPK is one of the most important metabolic regulators in your entire body. Think of it as a master switch that tells your cells to stop storing energy and start using it. When AMPK is activated, several things happen at once. First, it suppresses hepatic glucose production. It tells your liver to stop manufacturing and releasing glucose into your bloodstream. This is exactly what we want happening overnight. Instead of your liver dumping glucose all night long, AMPK puts the brakes on that process. Second, AMPK increases insulin sensitivity. It makes your cells more responsive to insulin, which means your pancreas does not have to produce as much to get the same glucose-lowering effect. Third, AMPK promotes fat oxidation. It shifts your metabolism from storage mode to burning mode. Instead of storing fat overnight, your body starts breaking it down for fuel. This is not theoretical. This has been tested in clinical trials. A study published in Diabetes Care tested the effect of vinegar taken at bedtime in people with type 2 diabetes. The researchers gave participants either 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar in water before bed or a placebo. The next morning, fasting blood glucose was measured. The group that took the vinegar had fasting blood glucose levels that were 4 to 6% lower than the placebo group. That might not sound dramatic, but in terms of metabolic health, it is significant. A reduction from 110 mg/dL to 104 mg/dL, sustained over time, can be the difference between progressing toward diabetes and stabilizing your metabolism. The researchers attributed this effect specifically to the suppression of hepatic glucose production. The vinegar was not lowering blood sugar by making you excrete it or by blocking absorption. It was reducing how much glucose your liver was making in the first place. That is a completely different mechanism than most blood sugar interventions, and it works during the exact window when the liver is most active in glucose production overnight. Now, the second ingredient, Ceylon cinnamon. Cinnamon has been used for centuries in traditional medicine, and modern research has finally caught up with why it works. But here is something critical. Not all cinnamon is the same, and using the wrong type can actually be harmful. There are two main types of cinnamon sold commercially. Cassia cinnamon, which is the cheap variety you find in most supermarkets, and Ceylon cinnamon, sometimes called true cinnamon. Cassia cinnamon contains high levels of a compound called coumarin. Coumarin is toxic to the liver in regular doses. The European Food Safety Authority has set strict limits on how much coumarin is safe to consume daily, and regular use of Cassia cinnamon can easily exceed those limits. Ceylon cinnamon contains only trace amounts of coumarin. It is safe for daily use. It is lighter in color, slightly sweeter, and more expensive, but it is the only type you should be using for a nightly drink like this. Now, how does it work? Ceylon cinnamon contains bioactive compounds, primarily cinnamaldehyde, and a group of antioxidants called proanthocyanidins. These compounds interact directly with insulin receptors on the surface of your cells. Insulin receptors are like doorways. When insulin binds to the receptor, it opens the door and allows glucose to enter the cell. In insulin resistance, those receptors become sluggish. The door does not open as easily. Glucose stays outside in the blood. The compounds in cinnamon appear to activate the signaling pathway inside the cell even when the receptor is partially resistant. They amplify the signal. They make the insulin that is already present work more efficiently. Research published in the Journal of Medicinal Food found that cinnamon supplementation significantly improved fasting blood glucose and insulin sensitivity in people with prediabetes and metabolic syndrome. Another analysis in the Annals of Family Medicine reviewed multiple controlled trials and confirmed that cinnamon produces consistent reductions in fasting glucose and triglycerides. The effect is dose-dependent, meaning more is not always better. The effective range in most studies is between 1 and 3 grams per day, which is roughly half a teaspoon to 1 teaspoon of ground cinnamon. So here is what happens when you combine these two ingredients at bedtime. The apple cider vinegar suppresses how much glucose your liver produces overnight. The cinnamon improves how well your cells respond to insulin. You are hitting the problem from two angles: less glucose being made, better glucose being cleared. The result is a lower, more stable blood sugar reading when you wake up. And over time, that nightly stabilization compounds into better overall insulin sensitivity, less fat storage, and a metabolism that actually works the way it is supposed to. If this is making sense and you are starting to see why the overnight window has been so overlooked, leave a comment and let me know. I read every single one, and it helps me understand what is clicking for you. Section 5. How to prepare it correctly. Now let me walk you through exactly how to prepare this drink, because small mistakes in preparation or timing can significantly reduce how well it works. Start with 8 to 10 ounces of warm water, not cold, not hot, warm. The reason this matters is that hot water above about 140 degrees Fahrenheit can degrade some of the enzymes and probiotics in raw apple cider vinegar. You want the water warm enough to be soothing and to help dissolve the cinnamon, but not so hot that it destroys the beneficial compounds. Room temperature or slightly warm tap water works perfectly. If you boil water, let it cool for a few minutes before adding the other ingredients. Next, add 1 to 2 tablespoons of raw, unfiltered apple cider vinegar. Look for a brand that says raw and unfiltered on the label and that contains the mother. Bragg is a common brand. There are others. The key is that it should look cloudy, not clear. If you are new to drinking vinegar, start with 1 tablespoon and work your way up to 2 tablespoons over the course of a week. Some people find the taste or acidity a bit strong at first. That is normal. Your palate adjusts. Do not exceed 2 tablespoons. Going higher does not improve the effect and significantly increases the risk of tooth enamel erosion and irritation to your esophagus. The dose used in clinical studies falls within this 1 to 2 tablespoon range. More is not better. Dilution is critical. Never drink apple cider vinegar straight. The acidity is strong enough to damage the enamel on your teeth and irritate the lining of your throat and stomach. Always dilute it in at least 8 ounces of water. If you are concerned about your teeth, and you should be, drink this through a straw. That keeps the acidic liquid away from your enamel. After drinking, rinse your mouth with plain water. Do not brush your teeth immediately after because the enamel is temporarily softened by the acid, and brushing can cause more damage. Wait at least 30 minutes. Next, add half a teaspoon of Ceylon cinnamon, not Cassia. Ceylon. If you are buying cinnamon specifically for this, look for labels that say Ceylon cinnamon or true cinnamon. It is usually sold in health food stores or online. It costs a bit more than regular cinnamon, but a small jar will last you months. Stir it well. Cinnamon does not fully dissolve in water. It will form a suspension, that is fine. Stir it again before drinking to make sure you get the full dose. Optional addition. You can add a small squeeze of fresh lemon juice. This improves the flavor, adds a bit of vitamin C, and some research suggests that citric acid may have a mild synergistic effect on blood sugar control. It is not necessary, but it makes the drink more pleasant to take. Do not add honey. Do not add sugar. Do not add stevia or any other sweetener. The entire point of this drink is to support stable blood sugar overnight. Adding any form of sugar, even natural sugar, partially defeats the purpose. If the taste is too strong, reduce the vinegar slightly or add more lemon, but do not sweeten it. Now timing. Take this drink 30 to 45 minutes before you actually lie down to sleep. Not right before bed, not 2 hours before, 30 to 45 minutes. The reason for this timing is that you want the acetic acid and cinnamon compounds to be absorbed and starting to take effect as your body transitions into the deeper phases of sleep, which is when cortisol begins its early morning rise and hepatic glucose production ramps up. If you drink it too early, the effect may wear off before the critical window. If you drink it right before lying down, the acidity can cause discomfort or reflux, especially if you lie flat immediately after. So the ideal routine looks like this. Finish your last meal at least 2 to 3 hours before bed. Around 30 to 45 minutes before you plan to sleep, prepare and drink this mixture. Then go about your normal nighttime routine. Brush your teeth, read, wind down. By the time you lie down, the drink has been absorbed and is starting to work. One more thing, consistency matters more than perfection. This is not a one-time fix. The benefits accumulate with regular use. The effects on insulin sensitivity, liver function, and glucose metabolism build over days and weeks, not overnight. If you miss a night, it is not the end of the world. Just pick it up again the next night. But to see real, measurable improvements in your fasting blood sugar and metabolic health, aim to take this drink at least 5 to 6 nights per week for a minimum of 3 to 4 weeks.